We haven't done one of these in a little while, but the SaaS Coach Show is back. This is
Back.
our special episodes.
Yeah, and obviously we're doing this from our homes. It's been kind of everybody in the world, for the most part, has been starting to work from home, and this is our first episode kind of remotely doing together, and so we're here in a new format today.
Yeah, pretty cool. So today we were going to talk about going deeper on retention. The series that this is kind of a special episode for is our retention series. And so today we want to talk about how you can prevent cancellations. Super important for anybody to, maintain users, but how can we be proactive in looking at what are the steps that we can take to ensure that cancellations that don't need to happen don't, and anything else that we can do. So I know that, Andy, this is an area that you've spent a lot of time working with clients on, and kind of mapping out the process and looking at some of the granular details that go into ensuring that you're minimizing those cancellations. So where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, this is all about reducing churn, and obviously canceling is that center point of it because it's the action that obviously drives people into churn. And so we've been working with a lot of our clients on, how do you really leverage the idea of canceling to be a way that you can strategize reducing your churn. And I think a lot of people don't focus on it the right way. One of the things that first we really want to figure out is, why are people canceling? Yeah. So in your process that people can end their account, it's really important to gather information, and it can happen a couple of ways. One, you can have a form there where at the end you're giving them some cancel reasons, as well as being able to fill in some information. There's debate within companies often of, do we require that? And are we forcing people to give us a reason? And if they do, are they giving us the real reason? The other method of collecting that information is obviously to use real time of support people and go and call and really, continue to follow up and ask questions to learn why people are canceling. But the reality is that if we don't learn why people are canceling, it really hurts us, the whole way through of thinking about retention and churn in general.
For sure. So what would you say about, you mentioned that, like, getting the real information, why people are really answering or why they're canceling when they answer those questions that are asked. Anything you can suggest there in how you get that feedback? Because I know that's a challenge. And when I heard that, I thought that's always a struggle when you're surveying or getting input from people.
Well, one of the first steps is really getting the reasons that people cancel right. We work with a lot of clients, and what we'll do is we go in, and they often have that form where it's, choose that radio input of, which one of these 5 things is the reason that you're canceling. But it's crazy how a lot of times that information and what you choose, there's either reasons that are overlapping, or in reality, once you dig into it, if you choose one, it really means that underneath it's one of the other reasons. And so what I've seen with clients is that, they'll go through and they just kind of arbitrarily come up with the reasons that people cancel related to what they do. Just for a real world example, we have a client that kind of has a software right now, and they were looking at like cost. Is this even a tool that someone gets value out of? Did they have the right features? Were there bugs? All of these different things, and they had about 10 different reasons. And the interesting thing is when you break it down, even cost sometimes has to do with what value are they getting out of it. Is the cost the value because it's too high related to the feature set that they're being provided? Is it cost because they don't understand the industry and what, they're not really utilizing the tool because it's not something that's valuable for them? So really, within cost, there were even these kind of sub reasons that truly gave us an indication of why people were canceling. And so we really had to sit down and think about, like, okay, why are all the different reasons that someone might cancel? How are they structured? And we actually required that they put an initial reason, and then they actually went to a secondary page during the cancel process and had to choose another reason that was a sub to that, because we really wanted to learn information, and they couldn't cancel the account until they went through that process.
Interesting.
And then the other big thing that we look at with canceling are prevention and mitigation, and then alternatives and rerouting. So this is a big part of our strategy. And what it means is prevention and mitigation. This is the opportunity. Is what we want to do is we map out the reasons that people are canceling. And then what you want to do is look backwards and say, okay, what are we doing within the software to prevent or mitigate someone even getting to that reason? So that's where these cancel reasons matter for way earlier in the process. Can we learn that the onboarding wasn't great and they didn't really get the value out of the software because people are canceling and saying, we're not, fully utilizing your product? Well, then maybe we have to look at the onboarding process. Or if it's, cost and the value, are we, putting features in that really portray the value that people are getting out of it? There's all these things that we can take these cancel reasons and start saying, okay, let's brainstorm ways to prevent and mitigate someone even getting to the point that they want to cancel for that reason. And so that's why this whole cancellation thing is so important, because it helps drive a lot of the bigger retention and churn rate reduction strategies.
Yeah, so it sounds like you can get a little proactive on your approach to getting in front of cancellations before they actually happen. And something that you jumped in and you said was, I was going to ask, obviously we're gathering that information when someone cancels, but is there a bigger picture that based on the user behavior, and you kind of went into that a little bit, and understanding kind of throughout the process, are there similarities, are there patterns that you notice with people that are canceling that maybe indicate it was part of the onboarding that was where the issues came up, or was it utilization along the way? People that stop using obviously are probably more inclined to cancel at some point.
Well, we talked about that in previous episodes, is combining discoveries. If you look at the cancel reason and you put those people into a cohort, all these people specifically canceling for this reason. Now let's go back and maybe see statistics organized, what pages did they visit? How many times did they come? What information did they fill out? Maybe we can watch some screen recordings of visitors that had chose that reason. And now that just gives us, more information to understand how do we prevent and mitigate these, cancel reasons. But we really can't understand what we're trying to do until we know why people are deciding to leave our software. And that's why, even though canceling is kind of the last step, it's really a key step to go back to the beginning and make better changes. And again, just for a real world example for you is, we have a software now where one of the pieces was, I'm not getting, it costs too much, I'm not getting the value out of it. And for someone within the software, every time they, added a new entry, it was in some ways kind of like a CRM. Every time they added a new entry, it was worth dollars to that person. Like it essentially was an opportunity or a potential sale, but there was nowhere where it was really displaying the total value. And so one of the things that we looked at is, right in the top corner underneath their name for the account, it would summarize and say, here's the total value of all the deals that you have in our system. And so now that it's constantly, displaying to someone this is the value of the account that you have. And then we looked at a lot of other features throughout the system to really make sure that we were communicating. The more you use it, the more you get integrated, there is value here. And we really wanted to make sure that no one got to that cancel place saying, I didn't really connect the dots between what I have in your system and the value that it provides to me. We really wanted to make sure that that was always extremely apparent.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then one of the things that we also did, this is where you can start doing what I said with the alternatives and reroutes. One of our goals in cancellation or the cancel process is, how do we present alternatives and how do we reroute people back? And as a great example with this value one of the things we say in the cancel process is, you have 30 deals worth $1.2 million. Are you sure that you want to, delete those?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that we're trying to reroute someone back, and actually offered the capability for them to put their account on hold at a lower cost rather than canceling entirely. So it's this whole idea of, we know that value is a piece, but we also know that anything they did in the software was providing them value. So now at the time they're looking at leaving, let's present how much is there and kind of give them that thing like, oh man, it's worth 1.2 million. Maybe I don't want to just get rid of that right now, and I should pause my account, and that, cuts the cost down to, 50% to just pause it for a period of time. So now we're kind of rerouting someone, that's more of an alternative. The reroute, one thing that we did as an example in another engagement was really looking at people that said that they didn't understand the market that the software was in. So what we did is during cancel process is really looked at creating a course. So if they would select that reason, say, I really don't understand the market, the software isn't a fit, we would instantly present them with a course that would say, become an expert in this industry, and it would help, teach them what needed to be done. Again, trying to reroute or mitigate how many people get through that cancel process.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Some of the things you're mentioning, I've seen before. Others I haven't. Like I haven't seen that course option. I think that's pretty cool. I've seen others that have done, I think your example of showing, the value of the deals that, the software has drummed up. That's really cool. I've seen similar, but I think not as effective versions of that, but it still like gives me as a user pause. I've had applications where I've gone to, cancel, and it just tells me, hey, you're going to lose all your data. And I think, well, you know what? I'll hang on to it. Just like when I think about it, it's like, what am I really losing? Nothing that I care about, but kind of putting in front of them what they're going to lose access to. And I like the way you're kind of really showing the value and, with a lot of clarity, what that value is and displaying.
Use another example. Let's look at, we are using a live streaming software. Let's say we decided to cancel this software. If it was, if the cancel reason is, I don't really know how to do live videos. Obviously I want to present a course and say, here's, 6 educational videos on how you can leverage live video to gain leads or thought leadership. Why don't you try that out before you, cancel? And then on the other side, if it was, I don't think I'm getting the value out of it, it could instantly pull up stats and say, you've done 10 videos and had 80 people watch live. Are you sure that you want to do this? I mean, every software has this capability of being able to, present alternatives or reroutes for the reasons that people are canceling. And it's a great opportunity. The prevention and mitigation is all about trying to stop people from even getting to that stage. The alternative reroute is trying to take anybody that actually ends up getting there and getting them back in. And so that's why this whole canceling process is such a center point.
So what about other touch points, like the big one that I think of, and I think we have an article that talks about it a little bit. when user gets an invoice, let's say it's monthly, and they're getting that. A lot of times, especially for users that aren't using something as much as they should or they could, and it becomes, this expense that they don't see. They don't see the value because they're not using it. And invoice hits, and they see that. That's typically a trigger to say, you know what, I need to cancel this and get rid of it. Have you seen some things that have been effective in getting ahead of, getting in front of those, addressing that, and helping to mitigate?
Yeah, there's definitely strategies, and that's a communication strategy and how you do it. I think, with invoicing and that, really making sure that you're giving people multiple notices, that it's not just we're invoicing you, but you're also putting positive spins around it. Things like, you know, in that invoicing email, putting some stats about like their utilization, or even an educational course to say this is how you can get more value out of it. A lot of this stuff in retention for me is about spinning negatives into positives. How do you change the mindset of people of what, potentially they think is a challenge, a barrier, an issue, and make sure that you're presenting it as an opportunity or a value. And so at the time that I'm getting that notification that I'm going to renew, how am I presenting the value of the product? How am I presenting the opportunity of the product? What am I not getting out of it? And how do I do that? And then how do I give them a clear path to being successful and getting the most out of it? And I think, again, most companies think of these as transactions. The transaction is, I'm going to send you a notification that you're going to renew soon. That's a transaction versus an experience, where an experience is, I'm going to send you a notification that we're going to renew soon, but I'm going to create it as an positive experience that I'm going to help show you the value you've gotten out of it, the opportunity, and a path forward to get to be successful. And so it's really changing that mindset from transactional interactions to more experiential interactions.
And I think if someone's watching this, it's trying to think, the example that you're giving with the client you were working with, it's pretty powerful because you're talking about, very obvious value that the software is delivering. But even if your software doesn't deliver, an ROI, and you can't put that right in front of them, I think even during that communication, that experience, I think things like, new features or, just highlighting maybe a case study or something like that. But to that point, the experience, and raise some awareness of everything that's, going really well or new or whatnot that the user may not be familiar with.
Every software has, value and has a reason that people engage in it or leave it. Even a gaming software, it's for entertainment. It's for community and connection. It's for self-pride. Am I accomplishing certain things? So you think about the canceling of a game, a monthly $2.99 game, but it's, are there scores in there? Are you presenting to someone, have you really achieved everything that you could because it's about pride? Or are you losing access to this community because maybe there's a feature in there that's, helping people communicate and, all these things where there's a community that's built into it. And so, even though it's not a B2B software, I think when you go back to the persona of the users you have and the purpose that you created the software, there are always reasons that people are doing something. And there are always ways that you can mitigate them from making a decision to leave by emphasizing those reasons. So that, there's always some way to look at it.
Yeah. I think a lot of those reasons tug at that loss, going back to that. What are you losing out on? There is value there in different ways, shapes, and forms, but what is it that you're losing out on when you're canceling? Because there's something that you're losing. And so I think highlighting that is important. To the example, the gaming, when there's a community, how many people are you losing access to, right? How many friends that, it's a network that you're, going to be dropping off of. So
that's the powerful thing of having a software, is that you can do this from a development standpoint. I think like if there's a community, and you've had 1,000 conversations with someone,
Yeah.
you can pull that data and say, do you really want to lose your access to Steve, who you've talked to every day? You know what I mean? And that seems creepy in some ways, but that is the capability that we have. I mean,
Get like a sad Steve face to.
yeah, exactly. Steve's face is there, and if you really want to reject Steve, click here to say no. And how many? But the reality is, how many people are going to be like, they're going to second guess that. They're going to go, whoa, wait a second. Yeah, I have talked to Steve a bunch. He is a buddy of mine, and if I leave this platform, that is a way that maybe we're a little less connected. Yeah. So, as weird as it is, I mean that's a good example of how we evaluate and strategize to reduce churn and keep more users in the system.
Yeah, very cool.
And just to show, I'll show one thing real quick from one of the things that we do. So I'm showing right now just kind of a flow chart that we developed. It looks like it's somewhat popping in there now. With one of our clients that really looks at how you go through that. They go to the account, cancel plan. If they click that cancel plan, are we presenting an offer for them to stay? And in this case, it was a class that they could take, and they got a unique value that the class was discounted in cost. Then it went down to, which option did they choose? And it would then show a video from the customer support person to say, oh, you think that this costs too much, here's why it doesn't. And then we looked at, the three alternatives, like a high value one, a medium value, and a low value alternative for them to go through. And then if they actually didn't take one of those alternatives, they had to choose the second reason that the secondary reason for them canceling. And then we tried to look at, okay, why is it that that's happening? And then again, we kind of went through these processes of looking at prevention and mitigation, and alternatives and reroutes throughout this. And so again, it's one of those things, just to kind of bring it back, is how do we logically break this apart? And what probably people have seen throughout all of our episodes is I'm not the type of person that you sit in a room with a blank piece of paper and you try and figure things out and just talk stuff out. We put it in a document, we organize it, you put structure around it, and then you break it down and you make decisions based off of it. And that's really what we've tried to do with like our specific retention program, is how do you build systems to look at all these different pieces and not just guess. And I do, again, just think that a lot of people, especially where we started, you look at cancel reasons, a lot of times it's just, three people in a room saying, okay, what are the 5 options that we throw in for canceling, rather than going back and really like putting it into a system and thinking it through and making sure you have the right reasons and all this stuff. So yeah, it's really important to be logical and smart about the way you attack this problem. And it can have a huge impact on your revenue and bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's cool about, the process that, you have in place. It not just comes up with a bunch of ideas, but it allows for action to be taken, prioritizations to happen, 100%. And make progress and improvement. So pretty cool. Well, that's awesome. This was some really good stuff here today. We'll be back. We're going to be doing a number of episodes, kind of adding on to the retention series that we've done, but we encourage you guys to go back, look at the other ones. We're always adding new content and articles and whatnot to the site as well. So my dog has just showed up here. He's
bouncing on my ball chair.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we will catch you guys next time. Again, we're going to have a number of these special episodes focusing on retention. Sign up for our list, subscribe to wherever you're watching us from, and we will see you guys next time.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tony. See everybody later.
All right. Thank you. Take care.